when we go into these things, and I'm telling you, my young people, because I was young one time, matter of fact, and with that being said, we go in thinking the sky's the limit. I go in there thinking this is a bank, so if this is a bank, they got a lot of money. So I'm thinking at a bare minimum, I should be able to roll up out of here with 50 grand. And little did I know, when I got there, they had about 10% of that available to me. So I got $5,160 some odd dollars and Fox and some change. And Fox has a way of saying that she believes that the change at least was ours because she knew that we had some money before we went in the bank.
Real life.
It ain't real life. Just ain't real. Real life street stars. You know what time it is. Real life street stars, man. We are here with a very, very special story. Two very special individuals. We both have Fox and Rob Rich. Thank you first and foremost for coming onto the couch and coming onto the platform.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, most definitely.
Excited to be here.
Thank you. With that being said, we always like for people to introduce themselves and also tell us what it is that you do.
Okay. Well, collectively, we're known as Fox and Rob Rich. We're a formerly incarcerated couple that spent more than 21 years behind bars before receiving clemency in 2018 from our then governor. We're also the subjects of the Oscar-nominated documentary Time, which is streaming live on Amazon Prime Video. And really excited about being here with the Real Life Street Stars. And so Fox, what you think? You got something to add with that?
Well, probably just the most important thing that we do is when Rob came home from prison September of 2018, we understood that to be free is to free others. And so we started a nonprofit in New Orleans, Louisiana that works throughout the entire state of Louisiana, Rich Family Ministries. And we have an initiative that is called Participatory Defense Movement NOLA. We call it PDM NOLA for short. We are one hub of 40 hubs across the country doing the work of legal awareness as a best form of defense for justice-involved citizens. So what God had done for us when they had sentenced my husband to literally die in prison, we now do for other families to be condemned, to have been condemned as an entire family. We now find it a necessary thing to do for other families because to err is human, but to forgive is divine.
Definitely. With that being said, the story of what you guys been through is a story that is normally told throughout just American history. I want you guys, if you don't mind, to just speak on, your love story in regards, because we have a lot of inmates and ex-cons that have came here, and they always say they had to do a lot of that time by themselves. Sometimes most of them, their mothers were there, but very few and in between where they had someone who they went in with, a woman they were talking to, a love of their life, has stayed to the point where, they're like, hey, this love is it can stand the test of this time. So just for educational purpose, if you don't mind, Rob, I want to ask if you could speak on, what landed you in Angola penitentiary system.
Okay. I think first it'd probably be important to note as far as how Fox and I met one another.
Yes.
And that dates all the way back to 1987, where we met as high school sweethearts. Came over by Fox's house, visiting with her and a friend, a mutual friend between the two of us, and realized that she piqued my interest the moment that I saw her. And that being said, I wanted to get to know her better. I pursued her, called her a little bit later on that night, but found out through that very short phone call that her girlfriend, our girlfriend, told her that there was something far more going on between she and I than she had ever let me know. And so that being said, wanting to be able to prove my case, I told Fox, I said, well, look, why don't we just call her on a three-way and we can go ahead and get the business out the way first. And so, we called her on three-way. And after a few questions and, talked to her about how it was that I felt like she was maybe misrepresenting our relationship. And in essence, had told Fox that, me and her had something going on that was far more intimate than I ever, had been made aware of. But at any rate, I decided to call her that night, and we called her on a three-way, Fox and I both on the phone. So when I mentioned to her about the fact that I heard that she had been misrepresenting our relationship, she realized that both me and Fox were both on the phone at the same time. She immediately did one of them Pink Panther moments, and she exited stage right. And she bailed up out of the conversation real quick. So that kind of killed that part, but it opened up the doorway for both Fox and I, because I think it was the first establishment of trust. Because,
I was in love by then. I said, oh, he loves me.
Gotta do it. Gotta do it.
Right. So therein began our relationship, November 13th. If you ask me, it was Friday the 13th when that's how I remembered it. But Fox has us dated at November the 14th of the same year, 1987. But what would happen from that is that we went through and experienced a 10-year on again, off again relationship with one another. When Fox met me, I was in the military and was reporting to my first tour of duty, which was overseas in Holy Loch, Scotland. And just some amazing moments that happened in between there that really forged our relationship in a way that really, I think, set us up for what we ultimately would experience later in time. And just how resourceful she was, to where this young lady was able to find me halfway around the other side of the world on a tugboat in Holy Loch, Scotland.
Oh, wow.
Phone rings, and one of my partners that was on the boat picks up the phone. When he picks up the phone, he's like, man, telephone's for you. Now, none of us had ever heard this phone ring before, ever. And now all of a sudden the phone rings, and not only does it ring, but he's saying that it's for me. I'm trying to figure out who's on the phone. I get on the phone and only to hear her sweet voice on the other end. And the first thing I'm like, how did you find me? And, just at that moment, it was like another tier or another depth of love that I found for her, because I realized how resourceful she was. And man, like I said prior, I just never realized how those character traits would come to assist us, later in time. Fast forward 1997, we decided we were back on again. And in that moment, I was like, well, ain't no use in me dating you anymore. I mean, I know what it is to date you. You know what it is to date me. There's nothing that we're trying to figure out about each other right now. And so I proposed to her. I asked her, would she marry me? And she's like,
we weren't even dating at this time.
Wow.
We weren't even dating.
Right. We had agreed to move in with each other, trying to offset costs and make sure that, the babies were cared for that were between us. And, we felt that we were better together with two incomes than we were, separated and apart from one another, trying to manage the same limited resources. But in that moment, I asked Fox to marry me, and to which she was like, well, when you talking about? I'm like, shit, I marry you tonight if I can get, if we can make it happen.
He had me without one.
Yes.
So she done one better. She made an arrangement for us to go to a small chapel in Kissimmee, St. Cloud, Florida, where we eloped after I shared with her that my brother and my sister-in-law, which are our two favorites of my siblings, the fact that they had eloped and got married to one another. And at the time, we were looking to buy a home, and we already had a built, a ready-made family already. So the last thing we wanted to do was spend a whole lot of money trying to appease society. And so we eloped, got married, and saved the money to buy a home. So as soon as we came back home from the party of us getting married in Florida, we came back home and purchased our first home.
But before that, you're not even going to talk about how we consummated our marriage?
I was getting to that point. Back up one more time. While in Florida, we go to this small chapel in Kissimmee, St. Cloud. And Fox had found these Asian ladies that were there that hooked their hair up and got her all of this, what do you call the stuff? Birds?
Baby's breath. They had done my hair with flowers. She says, you go get flowers. So he goes to the grocery store and gets flowers. And she said, I make her pretty for you. And she, they really did. They were all in and really went overboard with making me beautiful and for our special occasion with just he and I. But I think for me, the moment that we really proclaimed our union was the fact that at the end of the night, before we went up to our hotel room, we consummated the marriage by bungee jumping over Orlando together.
Oh, wow. That'll do it.
Yeah. right.
Ride or die.
You know.
Yes.
That'll do it.
Yeah. And just seeing how significant that bungee jump or that leap had taken such a more meaningful place in our life as far as what experience that came from there. Just as, we were thinking that everything was about to be fine. We had just bought a home. We had finally married, consummated the marriage.
Launched our business.
Yeah, our boys were happy. We started what was known as Shreveport's first original hip-hop clothing store, Culture. And once we got it all started, here it is that, like I said, we thought that everything was happening fine. We had gone out to Vegas to the Magic Show in order to buy inventory for our store. We were sitting back thinking everything was, like I said, on the up and up, and only to find out that our investor pulled out on us. Between that, coupled with lifing, as they say nowadays, we had one of our youngest son was hospitalized with some undiagnosed ailments, and we panicked. I was in one of them John Q kind of moments, and in my efforts to try to regain financial solvency for our family, to save our business and all of that, I robbed a bank. And as a result of it, subsequently, I was tried, I was arrested, I was tried and subsequently sentenced to a 60-year sanction as a first offender in a crime that the victims in the crimes were only asking for a 10-year max.
Wow. All right. I want to do it like this because we have a younger audience, and it's very rare. And you've been married for how long now?
28 years next week.
So, and as far as before getting married, how many children were? Three before getting married.
Between us.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
His, ours, mine.
Right.
3.
So can I ask you, if you don't mind, and Fox, I can start with you. As far as what is your thought on what marriage is, like what for you it is, at that time, being a younger lady and having children, what was marriage for you and how did that look?
Well, I think in my mind, I kind of thought like everybody else that marriage was like a fairy tale. It was all about love and feelings and catching feelings and holding on to them. But as you mature and you really get an understanding of life, you understand, and even studying the history of marriage itself, then you understand that marriage is so much bigger than feelings. It is about partnership. And so, at the root of Rob and I and all of our decision making, we were best friends. And so that partnership, that friendship made us great partners for one another. Where like in our life, when we wake up in the morning, it's not who's going to make up the bed or who's going to do the dishes. It's like whatever tasks are available and the person that is in the mood to do that particular task, that's how we move, So it's not like I need this on your chore list, this is my chore list, and I'm not doing yours and you're not doing mine. But it's just a nice ebb and flow of two people living out life on one journey together and seeing who can plug the hole first and not being worried about who plugged more holes than the other one. So one of the things that I notice about the younger generation as I talk to people and younger people are just amazed at the longevity of our marriage. You just don't find people in our age group even that have been married this long. And one of the things that I see in the young women that are 30 and 40 that are looking to date, looking for a marriage, a partner, that they tend to use their accomplishments. They weaponize their accomplishments. Well, if he's not doing this and he's not doing that, then he's not good enough for me and I don't want him. Sometimes I just think we have to look out of the scope of what we see as the society metrics and really look for somebody that can benefit us, because life for us looks so much different than life for our parents. When our parents came up, somebody was always at home. There was this time in this country where typically women were the ones that managed the households while the men went out to be the earners. Well, in modern day society, you find far more women earning even more than their counterparts. And so being able to balance that and find a safe space that you understand it doesn't matter who's bringing it in, because it still takes all of us to make it work.
Definitely. And thank you. Very well spoken. And Rob, if you don't mind, because you're the one who popped the question right then and there.
No, without a doubt.
Yeah, what was it for you? And what was your outlook as far as what marriage is to make you want to say, let's go ahead and make this official? You know, you are my person.
I knew Fox was my person the very first moment that I met her. But at the same time, I was in my early 20s actually in my teens when I met her. And being in my teens and when you talk about 10 years, that takes me through basically my latter 20s. But during that period of time, I mean, like most 18, 19, 20, 24, 25-year-olds, you're still trying to figure it out. I hadn't quite figured out life on my own terms at that point. And crazy enough, life doesn't come with a blueprint. You know, we have other people that we could probably look at and maybe take our cues from. But by and large, we don't get a handbook as to how it is that we navigate this thing called life. And when you go and venture into talking about not having a blueprint to navigate your life, and then you're talking about now merging your life into the life of another person, there definitely isn't a handbook, for how best to do that thing. And probably for me was the 1995 Million Man March. I went there with a caravan of some of my partners. We all drove down from New Jersey to DC. We was about 9 cars deep, full in each one of the cars. We got there, heard the message of the minister and all of what was being said in that day. And probably the biggest takeaway that was for me was probably the marching orders that we received. And that was for us to go back to our respective communities, claim our communities, start businesses in our communities so that we could provide jobs for our people, be a father to our children, be a man to our women, and marry. And so when I left and went back home, I took all of that, to heart. So when I went back home, culture was the outgrowth of what had been given to me as a marching order at the 1995 Million Man March. 1997, we were opening the doors to our first hip hop clothing store. 1997, April, we were making way or signing the paperwork to our first home. April of that same year, 1997, Fox and I were exchanging nuptials with one another. And we had started hiring people in our community. All of the things that had been put up on us in terms of saying, this is the pathway forward, taking heed to it because by far, Minister Farrakhan was probably the most prominent voice for Black men during the 80s and 90s, in terms of the most respected voice during that period of time. He was somebody that I really, I took my cues from, in a lot of ways, especially when it came to how it is that you be a man and how it is that you be a man to the person that you take on as a spouse. So all of that being said, like I said, that was kind of my framework or my backdrop in terms of like how I went from Rob the single guy to Rob now, taking responsibility and deciding to start a family and to build out that family.
Yes, like a sense of duty almost.
Exactly.
Which is amazing. This is Real Life Street Stars, and we gotta touch on it. We don't glorify, criminal activity and things of that nature, but we have to speak on it for maybe lessons learned. And sometimes we do find, or I may go in a little, just a little entertainment route. But like you said, you had like a John Q moment, almost like a John Q movie in which, me being a father myself, I know what hard times is. There's some things I had to do that I probably won't be proud of, but to get diapers for my child, it was times that, your back's against the wall. Can you speak on, or will you speak on the actual thought process of robbing a bank?
Yeah, just for me, like you said, I tend to side with the John Q version of this story. But at the same time, if you are seeking to maybe sensationalize it or give another dynamic to what something like that might look like, then, you can take in Set It Off. You can take in Dead Presidents. You can take in Point Break. All of those movies were hot movies that were like in the mid to early 90s, and they were all bank robbery movies. Takers came, much later, but it was always the big heist. America is based upon a big heist,
Right.
So we love those kind of stories. Exactly. And it's part of, it's crazy enough, it's really part of the DNA because, you're talking about a stolen country. Yes. We jacked for this country. You know what I'm saying? We jacked for everything that we got in it. We jack for the people that put it together, you know,
Right.
in the whole 9 yards. So when it comes down to it, the heist is always a story that resonates with American people because we're a capitalistic government, and in a capitalistic government, without no money, it's like having a body, no air, you know, no breath. You know, the quality of your life is limited, you know, depending on how much money you got or don't have. But with that being said, I would have to say that while I was incarcerated, of course, and this is now me speaking in hindsight, and I'm hoping that I'm speaking to some of your younger audience members in terms of like how we get to a place. And then once we get there, how is it that we navigate that space and then figure out how to make it something that is advantageous to us, something that benefits us, opposed to something that just takes and snuffs the life out of us. But do know that 60-year sentence that I got for bank robbery, like I said, it had the capacity or the potential to suck the life out of me. But it took me having to look at that situation from a different lens, from a different perspective, and say, okay, how then do I really look at this? And then about that time that I was entering that framework, the movie John Q comes about. And now you're talking about a hardworking man, a family man, that now finds himself up against a certain set of circumstances, and inside of it, in his moment of desperation, he do what desperate people do. When they get into a moment of desperation, they do desperate things. So whether the sensation was like saying dead prayers, where you were somebody that was a former veteran that came back home and realized that your country wasn't rocking for you the way that you was willing to rock for it, and you got to a point that you felt like you felt even justified. The characters in that film particularly felt like that they were justified in robbing a bank because they felt like America had robbed them. The case of Queen Latifah and the cast of characters that made Set It Off. You know, it was just a moment. And when you look at all of the circumstances that were surrounding that encore of women in that particular setting, they put it in their minds that they were justified for doing the thing that they had done. So Fox and I were no different when you start thinking about how is it then that you access the American dream. And they have a real thing that's called American Dream Syndrome. And the American Dream Syndrome is in simple terms, it is basically doing whatever you feel like you need to do in order to access the dream.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
You know what I'm saying?
Was it aggravated robbery? Or armed robbery?
In our state, it was just considered armed robbery because I did have a firearm. So me walking in the bank, brandishing a firearm, requesting money be given to me in the whole 9 yards. In that regard, for all practical purposes, in Louisiana, it's considered a violent crime. In some other cases, in some other states rather, it may be considered an aggravated crime simply because you have a firearm. But no one was beat, no one was tortured, no one was pistol whipped, you know, none of those things. I mean, crazy enough in our society, you brandish a firearm, you can pretty much get anything you want from the average person, you know, unless you OJ.
Right.
That was a good one.
Yeah, right. I'm curious now. That's very, very true. I'm curious, how much were you seeking to get at that time? Like, what would have been a good number for you to be like, I'm okay?
Let me tell you, when we go into these things, and I'm telling you, my young people, because I was young one time, matter of fact, and with that being said, we go in thinking the sky's the limit. I go in there thinking this is a bank. So if this is a bank, they got a lot of money. So I'm thinking at a bare minimum, I should be able to roll up out of here with 50 grand. And little did I know, when I got there, they had about 10% of that available to me. So I got $5,160 some odd dollars, and Fox and some change. And Fox has a way of saying that she believes that the change at least was ours because she knew that we had some money before we went in that bank. We wasn't dead broke when we went in.
Wait, this is a bank that you banked at?
Yeah, crazy enough, huh?
Did they know? Did they know you? Like, were
they did not know me under the mask. Once the mask came off and the trial and all that other stuff ensued, then they realized through cross checking the records and all of that, they was like, "Oh, hold up, this nigga got a bank account here."
That's Rob,
right?
So let me ask Fox, if you don't mind, did you know of this plot?
Listen, you know, for us, I think it was a matter of, and this is where I will speak to the woman's role, right? And the woman's role in this, and in particular, a lot of young women that are dating drug dealers and or men that they know are doing things that are not lawful. And so you're benefiting, and even your family is benefiting from what you receive from this person that you're dating that is doing unlawful things. And the challenge then becomes is that you think that that just lies on that person and not on you. Truthfully, I would say that as we plan this out, crazy enough, I never thought that Rob would get caught. If we do this, we had to do this. This is what we're thinking. We don't have any other choice. And so, number one, you always have to know that you've got another choice. Breaking the law should not be an option for us as Black people in America,
right,
because we will pay far more than we ever receive in the commission of a crime.
Right.
I'm going to say that one again.
Please do.
Breaking the law when you are a Black person in America is not an option for us, because we will lose more than we will ever gain in the commission of a crime. Your mama gonna lose, your daddy gonna lose, everybody know you gonna lose. And so, and I'm talking about into perpetuity,
yes,
you're gonna lose. And so just having an understanding of how becoming a convicted felon actually impacts or removes you from your citizenship in America in so many ways without removing your citizenship. They just stick the F on you and you're a sub-citizen at that point. You can't live in a certain place. You can't work in a certain place. And in the state of Texas, they even have it if you're a convicted felon, you can't go to your children's school field trips. You can't even be on the school campus if you're a convicted felon in somewhere like the state of Texas. And so I say that to say that I, overall, no matter how I felt about it, in hindsight, I realized that I slipped on my role as a woman and as the matriarch of my family by allowing my husband to even consider such a matter. Because at the end of the day, what happens is that all of the weight of incarceration, it lands on the shoulders of the Black woman. Yeah, he may go to jail, but it is you that is going to be going up and down the road trying to get to visit, take the children to visit, see after the children on your own, trying to find a lawyer, trying to undo the system, money on the books, money to pay all of the bills, because now you went from being a double parented household to a single person doing double parent work in your household. So I just think that I can even begin to glorify or speak to my participation on the front end of that, as much as I can speak to the retribution I experienced from not making the right decision for my family up front, to be able to calm my husband's spirit and say, no matter what, we're going to be all right. Because what we're not going to do is break this law and subject this entire family back into slavery in America. Because when you think about the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, then you understand that slavery is never over in America. They just put a caveat in it. Okay, we're going to let you be free until you break the law. And then they make sure that you cannot accept capital, cannot gain access to capital in a capitalistic society. So they know you're going to break the law. It's set up for you to break the law. They create laws knowing that you're going to break them, and then they will be able to make capital off of you in this institution. From things as simple as making a collect phone call. The whole world is talking free. But for me to take a 15-minute phone call from my husband so he can hear my voice and the voice of our 6 sons, it's over $5 a call. For him to send me an email, the entire world emails free. Nobody has ever had to pay for an email. Pay for data maybe, but not an email. You send an email in prison, it costs almost as much as a doggone stamp. And so those are the types of things that suck the blood out of the blood is capital. And when you break the law and enslave your family because of your illegal activity, because you felt like you had to do it, you subject your entire family back into being enslaved. And that was probably the most heart-wrenching thing for me, is to know that with my own volition, with my own hands, my own heart, I checked my entire family into slavery.
Wow, message. No, that's very powerful. Once again, because if people don't understand the outcome of what comes with, one mistake. If you don't mind me asking, Rob, I'm just curious. How did you get caught?
Oh man, when I went in the bank and came out of the bank, little did I know is that there was one of the ladies when I first went into the bank. She went into a holding space, and in the holding space they had a phone in there. She had locked herself in the vault, and they had a phone inside the vault, unbeknownst to me, for which she was able to trigger the police officers. And the police station wasn't too far away from the bank itself. And by the time I came out of the bank, police had already been alerted, were practically there on site. So as I, ran from the scene of the crime, they already knew the direction that I was heading. So from that point, it was just basically a manhunt, at that point. And shots were fired. I could have lost my life, in the process. My nephew, who was my co-defendant on the crime as well, could have very well have lost his life. But by the grace of God, both of us, survived that moment, and we were stuffed in the back of a police car and hauled into the station for interrogation.
And you speak on your nephew. So this was just you and your nephew. Those are the only two parties involved as far as that was there on the scene? Yeah,
the two of us were the ones that were sanctioned for actually doing the bank robbery. And then Fox was basically, what do you call an aider and abettor in the process?
Accessory.
So she was an accessory to the crime in the fact that she drove us to, not the bank, not round the corner from the bank, but she drove us and dropped us off in the general area. But for it, they charged her as an accessory. So it was myself, my nephew, and Fox that were part of this particular crime.
Wow. And we're going to speak on the time itself, but your nephew is still incarcerated?
No, actually, and then that's a part of the second documentary. Of course, that's something that we're urging people to watch, so they can see. Because one of the things after being incarcerated for 21 years and 4 days, probably the biggest takeaway that we had after experiencing that hell of a place was that to be free is to free others. So that is how we started our nonprofit. Once I got out of prison, teaching legal awareness as a best form of defense, because it's kind of like old people tell you back in the day when they used to tell you when you know better, you do better. Well, it applies in every area of life. The more you know about any given thing that you're up against, the better you are likely to succeed in doing it. When you have a level of knowledge that will allow you to work through those processes. Well, a lot of people get themselves jammed up in the criminal justice system. They don't know that they got the right to remain silent. They hear it all the time on TV, on their favorite cop shows, on their favorite gangster shows or whatever. But when you are the one that is sitting in the hot seat and you hear those words about the fact that you have the right to remain silent, it is a fleeting thing. You don't even hear that. And then you start talking and you have a way of like trying to talk your way out of what you done got yourself into. Explain how you got into a situation.
But you can't explain.
But they tell you any and everything that you say will be used against you in a court of law. So they will take your words and twist those words into the narrative that they and the district attorneys are seeking to build in an effort to hit you with the sanctions that come with that. So that is how I got caught.
Do you think that is more so because everybody watches First 48? Normally, when a person gets arrested, they weren't prepared to be arrested. So their thought process is, I need to get home today. Right. So I will tell you what you want to know, and I will speak because me speaking will hopefully let me go. Right. When you say you have the right to remain silent, you might have to actually sit in jail for a little while.
Right. Exactly.
You might have to sit in there till a lawyer could do something and not have your story out there. And I think that's where a lot of people, or at least people who aren't familiar with just the justice system, is that they feel like I want to go home today, so therefore I'm going to speak to help my case. When sometimes, in order to help your overall case, it's better to not speak what you don't know. Let a lawyer talk for you. And yes, you may have to sit. You may not go home that night.
Right, sometimes you have to take your lick on the front end so that you don't get your butt beat on the tail end. Right. And so if I can share anything with your audience, it would be shut up until you have representation. And I don't care what that looks like. Even if you are innocent, even if you want to, even if you did it, you still have to make sure that your defense, because if you did it, you may have had a reason to do it. And so we need to figure out what that reason is. Is this justifiable? And before we present it to the courts, it needs to be prepared because your life is on the line. Your entire existence becomes on the line when you are accused or arrested of any crime. Even a misdemeanor. And so I think that is the most important lessons that we can come here and share with your audience today is that you must remain silent until you have representation in your matter. You cannot talk.
And I'm going to circle back to that, but to speak on just the initial case and going through the court of law, for you, again, you're talking about $5,000. Some people go out to a gas station, scratch that off and win that. And the amount of time you had to sit down for that amount of money. Again, it wasn't aggressive crime, you know, but again, in the state, they have their laws. For you, how much time were you expecting to possibly get for this crime? Just in your knowledge at that age, from your knowledge of the crime, like how much time were you expecting if found guilty, or how, just, you know, from your soul as a human, knowing this is the weight of what I did, how much I'm expecting to possibly do?
That's a good question.
It is, very much so. And I think it's important to note that most people, when they go into a situation, when they commit a crime, very few people think about how much time I'm going to get for the crime that I commit. Because more times than not, we think we're going to get away with it unless your crime happened in the heat of passion, you know, but from that, I think we all have some level of trust that's inside of us that we think that people, the actors of the court, people in authority, we think that they will act with some sense of decency or human decency when it comes to carrying out, you know, the things as they relate to law. So me, like many other people, when I came there, one, I didn't even know how much time armed robbery carried until after I got to prison. Started studying the law books and figuring out some things when I started realizing, okay, wow, I didn't realize that the charge carried 5 to 99 years. And
more time than manslaughter in Louisiana.
Exactly. So you mean to tell me money got more value than a body? You know, because you got people go and do a fraction of the time for a manslaughter case than they would do for what would really amount to a property crime, because it's property that you're taking.
That is correct.
You know, but with that being said, I thought in all fundamental fairness, I thought maybe as a first offender, maybe as a person who was married, maybe as a person that had a family, maybe as a person that had a military background, maybe as a person that had college degree, maybe with all of these things factored in, the fact that I was a first offender, I thought that at worst, they would give me 5 years and then maybe that time would even be given to me in some form of probation where I pay a fine, some form of restitution, make an apology to the court and to the victims and so forth. But see, by the time I had gone through prison and watched other people with similar charges be sanctioned, I was like, okay, well, it fits somewhere in the category of what I was thinking. So I wasn't too far off from what I was thinking, because I watched a ton of guys as I was sitting there waiting to go to trial that had armed robbery cases, had far more aggravated circumstances than my own. And at the base, I saw someone that was able to walk away with 5 years, suspended, went off to do what they called a boot camp program, went to boot camp for 6 months, and then came home and spent the remaining portions of the time on supervised parole.
That was African American?
Yes.
Wow. Crazy
enough, right? And I saw a white guy who was also the fall partner of the black guy, and watched them come through and got 5 years and went home. His fall partner, the black guy, is the one that went to boot camp. The white guy, because he was a repeated offender, they gave him 5 years, but he had to do his 5 years. By the time he went to go accept the 5 years, he had done enough parish time to be immediately released on his own. And at the height of it, I think I saw somebody sentenced to 12 years. The person I saw 12 years, it was because they had enhanced his sentence, because he too was not just a double, but a triple repeat offender. And that being said, they hit him with an enhancement act, and the enhancement act caused them to give him 12 years, but the 12 years were flat, no good time. So by the time I had gone through trial, blue trial, and everything else, and was sitting waiting sanctions, I thought, man, they was pretty mad at me. Top end of this year, they might hit me 10 to 20 is what I'm thinking. I'm like at the max 20. But man, when I came in there and they gave me 3 times the max of what I was conceiving as maybe fair, I thought they was talking to somebody else. I'm like, man, he can't be talking to me. 60 years? And then when they sentenced my nephew to 45 years as a first offender, he didn't even have a weapon. He was 20 years old.
I'm about to say what age was, how old?
He was 20 years old at the time. Here I am, I'm in my mid-20s myself. I'm 27, 26 when this happens. And so, just as a result of it, never in a million years did I think that our court system would throw us away in such a manner. But it was from that point forward that I really started learning the lessons of like what this system is all about, how and what it's set up to do, how it destroys lives, how it is that, it repurposes human potential, and just all of those things. All of those things came to me, but they came to me after the fact. And to answer your question, never in a million years that I think that the people would give me 60 years for a first offense armed robbery.
To give both of them a practical life sentence. And for me, when they came to me with a plea deal, keep in mind, we had 3 kids. Rob comes home on bond. I get pregnant again. I'm found out when I get arrested while he's on trial that I'm pregnant with twins. And so here they are talking about offering me 40 years. 40 years for me. One who they know is a mother of multiple children, and they thought that justice in my matter would have been offering me a 40-year plea deal. And so, we thought that, certainly, it passed our minds like, if we get caught, what could happen to us? And we were thinking like, well, we're not the worst of the worst. So, I'm sure they'll correct our behavior, but it's a chance we got to take. We got to do, no other hope. There's nothing else we can do. And little did we know how much personalities play in the justice system. Justice is not blind, and never did we imagine that that this system would have handled us as college-educated people, as a family, had handled us like we were the worst of the worst that came through the system. And on multiple occasions through this system, we have seen that play out. And so don't think that just because you ain't got no record, it can't be so bad, because you'll be surprised that they'll use you as an example. And that's what happened in our family.
That's what
they wanted to make an example out of us.
Yes. Was the news picked up on this story?
Oh, yes, indeed.
The whole town.
The whole town.
The whole town. So we became a personal vendetta for the system. And who's to say that doesn't happen to you? We
became the black Bonnie and Clyde.
Basically.
That's how the narrative, they built out that narrative around us.
Not just some poor, desperate family that did a dumb thing or made a horrendous mistake. And so for me, I think that, one of the things in the aftermath of that, I remember going back, and it was right before I knew I was pregnant, and they had me on suicide watch because they thought I was going to take my own life. And so while I'm laying there on suicide watch, I'm really contemplating, like, I'm facing 297 years in prison. How can I ever get through this? Maybe I am better off dead than I am alive. Can you imagine having to ask yourself that when you're with child? Am I better off dead than I am alive? And in that moment, I heard something that I had never listened to before. That was the sound of my heart as it pumped blood through my veins. And I thought to myself, I have no control of this. So this that is making my heart beat, making my lungs expand, making all of my bodily functions work properly is a higher power that is so much bigger than me. If I am still here, it is for a reason. And I've got to push through and find out what that reason is. I've got to be able to see this through. I can't quit. Right. Because if my ancestors didn't quit, who am I to give up? Right. When I created this with my own hands. And so it takes me to what we've been hearing in the news about what happened to Texas, to that young man that is played at LSU. And he had a charge with vehicular homicide, I believe is his charge. And he's taking his own life. No matter what we are going through, I just want to share with your viewers that if you just trust God, even in your lowest points, even when you know you've blown the clip and you mess everything up, the God we serve has used historically the worst of us to do his greatest works. And so it is no different than Rob and I. Had I checked out in that moment because the threat assessment was so great, then I wouldn't, you turn around and say, yeah, it took us 21 years to get through it. But the way that God brought us through it was only fit for a king. 2 years after being released from prison, Rob and I are on the red carpet at the Oscars because we've been nominated. We're at the most exclusive Oscars ever, the 93rd Oscars, because it happened during COVID. And here we are on the red carpet. I mean, dressed from head to toe by Dallas's own Essie Azinzabor made my gown that was it was so beautiful that I know the Street family will love this one. My gown was so beautiful that when Rob and I arrived on the red carpet, one of the staffers from the academy comes over and taps me. She says, "Excuse me, ma'am." And I look at Rob, I'm like, okay, what we done messed up? We not where we supposed to be. And the lady says, "I just want to let you know, I have worked here for 12 years, and that's the baddest gown I have ever seen." I said, "Ooh, boy," I rolled my shoulders back, lifted my chin up, and told my beau, I said, "Come on, baby, let's go take this red carpet." Don Morphy designed Rob's suit.
Who designed? Okay, Don Morphy?
Yes, Don Morphy, Dallas's own, designed Rob's suit. But not only that, it was actually such a blessing how that came about, because Erykah Badu, another Dallas favorite, is my dear friend from Grambling.
She always be claiming Erykah as our own. We all went to Grambling.
Go ahead and claim her.
My classmate.
My friend. Yes, because I was in a play with Erykah at Grambling, so too. But when we were preparing for the Oscars, Amazon said, "We got $1,000. We're gonna send you all so that you can get dressed for the Oscars." I'm like, how you gonna get dressed for the Oscars with $1,000? Like, really, Amazon? Come on. And so I called Erykah and told her, our challenge. And so she connects us with the one and only Diamond Mahone, stylist out of Dallas. And Diamond Mahone connected us with Essie Azinzabor and Don Morphy, who not only dressed Rob and I, but Don Morphy designed suits for all 6 of our sons to go to the Oscars with us.
Not as a rental, but as a keepsake.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Yes. So that's the kind of talent. Shout out to my folks in Dallas, because Dallas made our Oscar event the affair that it actually was.
Yes, and I'm going to speak on the Oscar nominated time, Doc, but I have to ask, because you went to a location that America looks as really modern day slavery. When people speak of Angola, you hear nothing but horror stories mainly. That it's its own town, it's its own village. It's
got its own zip code.
Got its own zip code. The families that stay there, that work there, live there, and it's passed down through generations of working there and things of that nature. How was it overall, as far as you being a young man and also going in with your co-defendant, your nephew, and during that time, how was it for you? Because again, we've interviewed people like Diesel, names like E Solid, and those guys served 30 years in Angola. And it seems like that's like the last stop anybody would want to be. And they, children go there. How was it for you, maybe the first day going in, and how quickly did you adjust? And then Fox, I'm going to come back as far as speaking on how did you do that with him. But if you don't mind just speaking on your first day in, and how long did it take you to adjust to the reality of this may be your home for possibly the next 60 years?
Man, it was crazy enough. I remember the night that the jailer came down the hallway to come get me. And I was at a holding facility in North Louisiana at the time. And I remember when he came down the hallway, crazy enough, it's kind of like when you watch those movies and you hear the footsteps, coming down the hallway. It's like them hard bottom shoes that you hear walking on concrete. And I could hear him walking down. I could hear the keys jingling in his hand. And crazy enough, I don't know if this is like maybe a part of DNA or something that is part of the trauma that goes through our DNA, but for whatever reason, it just felt like what I've watched happen on TV before. When I watch slave movies or movies that are built around slave narratives, and that hearing of those keys and how they sound when they jingle back and forth against the the officer's body, and him coming to the front of my cell. It's like in the middle of the night. And much in the same way it was, I guess, with slavery, they come and they kidnap you in the middle of the night, or they come and they take you in the middle of the night, and they, unlock your cell, they lock you up, they put you in these shackles and handcuffs from ankles to your wrists, and then they haul you off through the state in the middle of the night. And along the way, you're stopping at what I saw as depots. And in these depot stations along the way, there were other men and women that had been picked up and now sanctioned to whatever it is that they've been sanctioned to, and they were headed to a location. That location is just outside of Baton Rouge, is where we ultimately all land. And when you pull up, there's like a bus that represents every prison in the state, including federal. And based on the name or the titling that's on the boat, is much like the ships of yesterday. You knew that you were either going to this plantation or that plantation based upon the name of the prison that was emblazoned along the side of the bus. Well, everybody that was dressed in white, I learned that all of those people are going to Angola. And everybody that's on that ride to Angola know that everybody go to Angola to die. You don't go to Angola to live. That's the end of the road. And you're talking about at a time when Angola was seen as one of the most bloodiest penitentiaries in the world, the most bloodiest by some accounts. And you have a situation where you have over 6,000 men that are sanctioned and sentenced to Angola. More than 85% of them have been sentenced there to die, meaning that they never have a right to parole, probation, or suspension of sentence, nowhere during the tenure of their time in prison. The 15% of those that are not sanctioned there to die are guys like me that have been sentenced to so many number of years that you would die based upon the fact that you would never be able to fulfill a 60, 70, or 800-year sentence in the case of one brother that I knew. And so when you get there, you're forced into this environment. It's an 18,000 acre plantation that is covered by the Mississippi River on all sides. And it's a 21-mile winding road that drives you down into your final destination. And once you get there, like I said, it's like you've been taken back into time. I remember, when I got there, they took us through and they shaved our heads and they sprinkle you with the lye, they spray you down, and they take from your stuff that you're being brought. Your family spends money trying to make sure you got all the things that you need when you get there, so you don't have to ask nobody for nothing, but only for you to get there and realize that this is contraband. This is contraband. This is not allowed. This is unauthorized. And so they snatch all of your stuff, all of the things that your people have spent limited funds on, trying to get you straight to go and not have to ask nobody for something. You realize that now they've stripped you from all your stuff, and somebody else, it's not that they throw it away, somebody else takes it and goes on off with your stuff. And then they started handing out, assignments in terms of like, where will you be housed? And I knew that I was going into the main prison. Population is where they were sending me. And the whole time when I was there, I kept hearing all of this rumbling and all of this loud noise. They were men's voices, is what I was hearing. And it sounded like maybe they was fighting, because, they was, bitch this and hold that. And, it was all kind of nigga, it was just, a whole lot of bantering back and forth. And I'm like, ooh, are they rocking in this motherfucker here? And that's all I'm thinking. I'm like, wow, I don't have a gun. I don't have a knife. I ain't got no brass knuckles. I ain't got nothing. You know what I'm saying? I'm now about to be, placed into this environment and, told to figure it out. And so when I got down there, like I said, all of the rumbling and stuff that was going on. So by the time I made it to the dorm, it was lights out. And so when I got there, can you imagine going from a lit situation into a dark situation, and you kind of have to, let the light readjust itself so that you can kind of figure your way out. But as I figured my way out, I found my bed. The security officer showed me where my bed was, or at least pointed in a direction, and I found my bed. But once I got to my bed, put all my stuff on it and sat back and I looked around. When I looked around the dormitory, I realized that there were other men, but they were asleep. And it reminded me of what I remember seeing on a slave ship. When you have that topography view of a slave ship and you look down into it, you can see how men are, situated from head to feet. And it was like that, all the way down through the distance of the dorm. And I was like, wow. But I woke up the next morning to realize that, like I said, of the 6,000 men that were sanctioned there, more than 2,000 of those men were on my yard. More than 500 of them were on my pod. And more than 100 of them slept in my immediate area with me. And in that immediate area, we shared 2 telephones. We shared 1 kiosk. We shared 6 urinals. We shared 4 toilets. We shared 4 showers. We shared 4 sinks. 2 of them usually didn't work most of the time. And we shared 1 TV. We shared 1 microwave. We had no air conditioning. We had 2 fans in the entire dorm. We were living in a warehouse. So when I say dorm, I just say dorm for practical purposes, but these are warehouses that are filled, from fore to aft with black bodies. And so I'm in that setting and in that environment. And, like I said, I'm thinking to myself, like, man, how am I ever going to make it out of here? These people have sentenced me to a lengthy amount of time. And it was a brother that came up to me, a brother named Celestine that came up to me, and he shared with me a civics book. And inside the civics book, he took me to the 13th Amendment. And he said that slavery has been abolished except if you've been duly convicted of a crime. He said, my brother, you've been duly convicted of a crime. He said, now you can come go with me to the law library, or you can go to where the other veterans, because at that time I was a vet coming into the situation thinking that, it might be something that might be able to be worked out or whatever. But I went and joined him at the law library. And from that point, I started realizing that I was really going to have to dig in and try to figure my way up out of here. But at the same time, I was also thrown into a very violent environment. One where, guys would do all manner of stuff in order to, get their lick back, or, take your stuff, or, take you even, if that was something that they desired in a moment. But, it was just like from one dormitory to the next, from one yard to the next, from one spot of the prison, one housing camp to the next. There was always horrific stories. Dudes being woken up in the middle of the night. And this is not just something I heard. This is stuff that I've witnessed. People cooking magic shave in the microwave and then dousing it on a dude while he sleep. You can't even imagine what that feels like. Dudes cooking hot coffee and dashing you with hot coffee. Dudes that work on the yard got access to gas and come in and pour gas over you and light a fire. Dudes that are dirk you in your sleep, with a shank or whatever. Just all the things. I've witnessed guys that have been hit, in the head, and their eyeballs pop out onto the ground, and they're picking up the eyeball with hopes that they can get to the hospital fast enough that somebody might be able to salvage what they just lost. Usually over small stuff, bag of chips, a soup. You change the channel when I put it on that. You sitting in my seat. This is where I sit when I watch TV. You in the shower. This is not your shower time. This is my shower time. Just all of the dynamics that you got to figure out how to navigate and work your way through. And sometimes it takes a showing, a showing that, that I'm going to fight for mine. How hard you willing to fight for yours, that varies. That's a question that every man has to ask himself when he finds himself in a situation like that. But I knew for me, knowing that I had sons, and I wasn't in no kind of way prepared to tell my sons that my stuff had been taken. I had not been prepared to tell my sons that I had been taken. I had never been prepared to tell them none of those negative aspects of things. So I knew that I had to walk my journey. I had to walk it a certain kind of way, and I was willing to walk it however I needed to walk it to make sure that I could stand in dignity and respect when my sons came to see me, or when my wife came to see me. She knew that I was still her man in all ways that meant. And so, those are the conditions that you're placed into, and you got to figure it out, but I learned later that no differently than once I put prison behind me, much of the same was happening when I got back, because when I went into prison 2 years on the other side of Windows 95. So by the time I came home, man, MySpace was a thing and no longer a thing. Yeah. Everybody needed a cell phone. When I left for prison, the only people that had cell phones were street chemists and real doctors.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it was a big old brick. It wasn't a bag phone or something. Everybody had a pager. no texting. You just use codes and spent the page upside down and read the message.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But
No,
I come home and now everybody got a cell phone. Nobody can live without their cell phone. When I left and went into prison, people were wearing baggy clothes, whether it was Dickies or whether it was some, fashion design off the East Coast, but everybody had big baggy clothes on. I came home, practically everybody was naked.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But all those things is what I returned home to. So I say that to say that just as I went into prison and was told to get it how I live, I came home from prison after 21 years and 4 days, and the same thing was told to me by civilized people. They told me to get it how you live.
Definitely.
So I came into this environment. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know coding, didn't know how to work a cell phone, none of the things. And I had to figure it out.
Definitely. And Fox had texted me to you because you didn't serve any time. You said they offered you a plea deal. How did you?
I ended up taking a plea deal for 2 7-year sentences and 1 5-year sentence run together. So I did 3.5 years before I was able to return home to our children. And immediately upon my return home, I got home one day, picked up the boys. We slept and got on the road at 2:30 the next morning to make the 5-hour trek from Shreveport to Angola so that I could visit my husband and touch him and let the boys feel him, because they hadn't seen him since I had been away in prison. And so, it was just, you cannot put into words how much harm you do to your family when you are convicted of doing something unlawful in this country. And so that's why I just have to reiterate over and over again to the viewers that we cannot afford to break the law as Black people in America. We must be the most law-abiding citizens that ever hit this land, because we lose far too much.
Far more than you'll ever gain, that's for sure.
How did you do the time with them? Because again, like I said in the beginning, thank God that you already consummated your marriage. Thank God there's children already involved to kind of keep you on a path, because sometimes that time does break a woman as far as, not being there for just the life you imagine. That's when I asked, what is marriage? Because now it's not this. Now this marriage looks like something different, because even a partnership is put through a straining situation. How does and what did you have to dig into to be able to get through this time with them? Because at the time, you don't know how much time he's really going to do. It might be for the rest of your natural life. How did you do that with them?
For one, I would have to say that a lot of people watch our story time and they say, oh my God, you stayed with him for 21 years. And or men in particular would say, man, I want to get me a fox. I'm going to find me a fox. And, I want a woman that rocks for me like Fox. And I would not wish an incarcerated union on my worst enemy, period. And so for women who were not involved in the commission of an offense, and they take on a man who is behind bars and his legal matter, I have so much respect for them, because I cannot even conceive how a person could choose that level of suffering for themselves, for partnership. I'm not knocking it. We all need love. But again, it is baffling to me how a woman subjects herself to that level of inhumanity to partner with someone who is serving a sentence. And so finding the will to stay with my husband, for me was one, he was my husband before this happened. 2, this was a decision that we actually made together. So I had a duty and an obligation, regardless of all the things, because loyalty is important to us. And when I gave him my word, when he got sentenced to 60 years, I'm in jail and I'm waiting to hear how the sentencing go, because I had no idea. Rob would borrow his cellmates, and when we were in the parish, he borrowed the guy at the cellie at the end of the hall's room, roll up his mattress, stand on top of it to talk to me through the window. And so while I was outside with the women on rec, and so in that moment, he says to me, you know how much time I got? And I'm like, well, no. And he says, they sentenced me to 60 years. Again, like Rob, I knew that they called themselves having a problem with us and they wanted to make an example out of us. But never in my life did I imagine that the system would use taxpayers' dollars, would use their power to leverage against us to annihilate our family for taking $5,000. Mm-hmm. And so I looked back through the window, through the barbed wire on the window, to talk to Rob and say, well, it'll make the movie more better. Mm-hmm. But we'll walk it together. I promise I won't let go of your hand. And this is being spoken from a woman who's now finding out she's pregnant with twins. Mm. And so I just think that it is the word commitment that we don't understand anymore. If I'm with you, I'm with you. And Rob later on would even bring those words back to me when he asked me a question. He said, Fox, when we married, we made a commitment before God, for better or for worse. Did you think that the better would come first?
To which you said,
hell yeah, nigga. I thought we'd at least have 10 good years before we get into, some ruckus around this
Optimism.
Right. I didn't think that 6 months into our marriage, we would be facing 297 years. No, I did not consider this. This was not a thing for me. And so for me, one, it was that he was my husband. Two, it was the fact that there was a commitment. We had made this decision together. And three, for me, was the fact that I had another one that was really important to me, was that if I didn't stay, then we had let the system win. Mm-hmm. They sent him to die in prison. And that if I walked away from him and if I walked away from our family, had this not happened to us, I never would have seen myself saying that I was going to give up on my family, because it was bigger than just him. I wasn't staying for just Rob. I was staying for our entire family. Mm-hmm. It was bigger than he or I.
Correct.
Because even though we were an incarcerated family, we were still a family that my children found sanctuary in, because they knew that their father and their mother were together under any circumstance.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And that seems like what they try to break down, the ideology of the black family. And if they would have won and he would have not made it, we got him.
Yeah.
Right. And look what happens if you try this again.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I want to speak on time. And again, Oscar nominated. I got to say that again. As far as how did that come about? What was the expectation of it? Because again, even now we're writing the story as we go. And for that part to come out, and again, part 2 is set to be released, we'll speak on. But how did time come about? What was the message? What was the story that was to be told right in that moment?
Man, would you believe that time was actually Rob's idea? He says, I go to visit him one day and he says, I think that the only way we're gonna, it's like 15 years in we had done. And everybody that we talked to, I'm like at the state capitol, every legislative session, I'm reaching out to other groups and organizations. But unlike people that are innocent, we are guilty, just excessively sentenced and seeking help. And people would, they would bemoan me. They would listen to me go on and on about how unjust this was, but not one person would offer a finger to help me correct it. Not one person could guide me to how it was that I could undo this unjust system. Everybody thought it was wrong, but nobody could tell me how to fix it. And so Rob says, as we are working 4 different legal measures along the way, all at the same time, he says, I think that the only way we're going to be able to get out of here is if we raise national attention about our story. Because we've been from the top to the bottom of Louisiana, and everybody's sorry this happened to us, but nobody is actively engaged in trying to help us undo it. And so I said, okay. He says, so we should do a documentary. He says, I saw this documentary, The 13th, that's coming out. And I was thinking that if we're going to get the help we need, then we've got to raise our story so where other people can see. And then we could put it in the court of public opinion and see what the public says about this. So, I always consider Rob to be my visionary. So I'm like, okay, so we're going to do a documentary. I've never done a documentary. I've done some TV shows, but never done a documentary. So I'll get back to New Orleans and I'm going to go figure out how to make this happen. And did, and started the process of documenting, which I had been doing all along. I had been filming the entire time we had been in this situation. First, I started filming because I wanted to capture us getting married. We had beaten the odds. A Black family getting married with 3 children in between them. We had finally made it to the altar. So with that time, the documentary on Amazon, it opens up with me saying, there's the riches. Now, what do you think about that? You know, I was so proud we had created a family, a foundation. And so Rob says, you know, I think we need to do a documentary. And so I start this process. And then when we start on our journey, God always sends us what we need, right? So God sends to me this young lady, filmmaker, who was working on a project for the New York Times. Somebody in the community had told her if she was working on a story like this, then she had to interview Foxrich. So she calls me, and to which I say, anybody working to tell these stories, I'm here for it. I'll participate. So in interviewing with her for that short doc for the New York Times, I say to her, well, I'm working on our story being told. Would you go back and ask the New York Times if they would fund telling this story? To which she did, and to which they greenlighted. And that would be the beginning of time. It was supposed to be a 15-minute op doc on the New York Times website, which we thought would generate the buzz that we need to get Rob's freedom. Well, as God would have it, we were able to get to the destination of freedom independent of the doc, and was able to make Rob's release a part of that documentary. And so when we wrapped this film, I gave the filmmaker a bag of footage I had been shooting, and that footage, which was almost 200 hours of footage over 21 years, would make Time become a full feature film that would go on to be purchased by Amazon at Sundance for $5 million. And so that is how that journey began. We had hoped that by telling our story, we would be free. Instead, we got free, added it to the tail end of the story, and made history. Because you don't see people that are actually guilty of their crimes ever having their story reach that plateau.
Correct. No, that in itself is amazing because, and again, I want you to speak on it, Rob, in regards to how did you get out after 21 years? What was the process going to the law library, knowing this is being worked on and speaking on, just keep filming, just keep working on it. What were you doing on your end to say, let me try to, of course, assess the situation to my freedom?
Probably the first piece was just trying to make sure that the personal development of myself was kind of the thing that I focused on a lot. So I went and I got all of the training that I could. I studied trades. I got a 4-year degree while I was incarcerated through the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. They came in and offered a 4-year college degree, and I signed up for it and ultimately was able to secure my bachelor's as well as my associate's degree while there. Picked up a number of trades so that whenever I got an opportunity to be in anybody's court, that I would at least be able to say that I'm a different person now than the person that I was when I entered the system. In addition to studying the law and those kind of things, what I thought was going to be my avenue out of prison, which was a resolution, a measure of law as it related to people who had served more than 20 years and had reached the age of 45, that they would be eligible for parole consideration after meeting those benchmarks. As I got close to the moment of entering those dynamics, they decided that they wanted to change and rewrite the law, to which I started appealing it. And so I started yet another process of case appeals. And just when I'm thinking that all this was going to materialize and come to the forefront, mind you, in Time, the original documentary, for those of your viewers that get an opportunity to watch it or have watched it already, you see Fox having these conversations back and forth with seemingly people of the court. But what Time does not tell is like all of the different people that she's talking to. We had a fight going on in the district court. We had a fight going on in civil court. We had a measure before the Louisiana legislature. And I also had a pardon application that I had put in for the governor's consideration. Well, One of our twin boys, Freedom, we had two sons, Freedom and Justice, the ones that Fox was pregnant with while she was incarcerated. We ultimately named them Freedom and Justice because, I mean, going through an experience like this, what other names could you possibly come up with? Like maybe Hope, Liberty, you know what I'm saying?
You're right on the money.
But you gotta be something in that vein, right? But that became their names, and crazy enough, Justice was Fox's favorite and Freedom was my favorite. But I used to whisper in his ear all the time and saying to him that he was going to be the one to get me free. And I'm talking about I started doing that as early as maybe 3 months old.
Baby.
And all of the time, I would always whisper that into his ear until he got old enough where I could just say it to him. And crazy enough, fast forward, when he's maybe 17 years old, he's at a speaking event at Loyola University. And they have two main speakers that are there, guest speakers that are there. One was our governor, and the other one was a gentleman by the name of Frank Luntz. Frank Luntz is a Republican pollster. And he pulls together all of these think tanks to basically create messaging and words and all of the things as they relate to how it is that we go into, having laws and so forth changed. Well, at any rate, Frank got up to speak and my son stood up and asked him a question, my 17-year-old son. And mind you, he was there decked out in a suit with a tie and the whole 9 yards. So Frank was really impressed. And so he asked me, he said, first and foremost, why are you at my event dressed like that?
I'm not even wearing a tie.
Speaker. I'm not even wearing a tie. And so my son went on to ask his question. And after he asked the question, Frank answered the question. And so my son decided to leave because he had some things that he had to do for his mom before going back home. And in the middle of his speech, the guy says, "Hey, kid, where are you going?" And he says, "Well, I have to go." He says, "Well, why don't you stay?" He says, "I'm going to change your life." And so to which my son called and told his mom, and she told him, "Man, if you don't get your butt back in there, whatever that is, I done sent you to do, you got time, and just go in there and do your thing." So he went back inside, and he hung out. And then after which, Frank asked him for coffee. Mm-hmm. The next morning. And after he found out that Freedom was 17 years old, he asked him whether or not his mom or his dad, or whether or not his mom or dad was available to join him for the cup of coffee. To which Fox accommodated and, showed up. And at that moment, Frank told Freedom in front of Fox, he said that you are by far one of the most impressive people that I've seen and witnessed in the last 25 years of my life. And he says, "What can I do for you?"
Wow.
And in that moment, it was like somebody had lobbed the ball up and, LeBron did his thing. But it was in that moment that Fox had already prepared him. She says, whenever people of this magnitude want to take time out with you, it's because they see in you what we've already recognized in you. He says, so the one thing that you need to be prepared to do is to go in there and tell him what you want, because he should ask you what it is that you want, because that's the whole reason why he's even meeting with you. So when they got in the meeting, my son told him that there were 3 things that he wanted. One such thing was that he wanted his father home. And he said, in the most unselfish way, 17 years old, and you'll see why he's my favorite. He goes on to say that I would like to have my father home. He says, but not for me. He said, but for my younger brother. He said, because I believe that he has the right to grow up in the house with his father. He deserves that right. Yes. And I would be hopeful that if I had a wish, that would be my wish. Ooh. And then he said, secondly, we have a piece of legislation that we have in the legislature right now. We're hopeful to be able to get it passed because it would not only help my family, but countless other family members. And he said, and then thirdly, I need money for school. So if there's any grants or anything out there that is available that you may know of, I just ask that you consider me for it. And Frank, being true to his word, not only spoke to our governor, he was able to get Freedom transferred from Tulane over to Loyola on a merit scholarship, and what he lacked in funding, he paid the rest out of pocket. And it was maybe a year before I went up on the pardon board after all of my other opportunities at Freedom had failed, and it was the least successful way that I thought my freedom was going to come about was through the pardon, because it was such a lofty order. 2,200
people applied for clemency the year that Rob did. He was the only incarcerated person that got the governor's signature and came home that year.
And crazy enough, I knew that I was going to get the governor's signature more than a year before I even went before the board. But the thing was that I had to get past the board for him to execute his signature.
And probably another element in there that your viewers, I think, would appreciate is that you see stories like ours in documentaries and you think that people tell their stories and, oh, that's great. And, it's all good because you've made a movie and so on and so forth. But we lost so much by telling our story because I had specifically told the film team when we were working on time during Rob's pardon hearing, I had specifically told them, do not bring those cameras out until after this hearing is over. They disobeyed my wishes and immediately started filming outside the prison gates. The guards saw them and brought them to bear, and it caused the worst ruckus. We almost lost our opportunity at freedom because the pardon officers, the officials, were so upset that someone had been identified from the New York Times filming this hearing and they knew nothing about it. So instead of commuting Rob's sentence,
to credit for time served.
To credit for time served, they just gave him accelerated his parole and let him out on parole. So that means that the 40 years that was left of his sentence, he's now serving on parole. So yeah, it's something to tell your story, but it does not have its own form of retribution when you are bold enough or transparent enough or vulnerable enough to share your stories. You do suffer consequences for that, as our family is still suffering for that. Here we are 7 years later of him being home.
Wow. No, amazing. Chills. As we want our audience to definitely watch Time, again, Oscar nominated, we are pushing towards unfinished business.
Yes.
We are pushing towards Time 2. And right now the hashtag we're pushing is, time to watch. I believe April 22nd is when we are starting this initiative, and we're leading up to Juneteenth, in which the film will, of course, be released. What for this? Because again, you also spoke on the co-defendant, your nephew. What will we need to take away from Time 2? As far as, I think now we're speaking to a broader situation, and regarding Time is a more personal story. And then Time 2 is going to open the conversation to other people that are going through this situation, not only of our skin color, but just any of us who are put through this system and feel like we're thrown away. What will this speak to when people get a chance to watch, the unfinished business, the story of, Time 2, part 2?
We are calling on 1 million people to watch Freedom this Juneteenth. That is our campaign. We want 1 million people participating, watching, learning, and then acting and having a discussion about freedom on this Juneteenth, June 19th, 2025. And so we're releasing this film across the nation through this action of a watch party. So we're hopeful that folks all over the country will organize their own community of people to come together to watch freedom unfold this Juneteenth. And then let's have a real conversation about what does it mean to be free in America, and an understanding that to be free is to free others. So that is our efforts. This second documentary, the sequel to our Oscar-nominated film, is my directorial debut. And telling this part of our story was so important to me because, one, I wanted people to know what actually happened and how did we get Rob home. But even more important than him coming home, what did we do with freedom? And so often when our stories are told, they are told from such a disempowering state. Like, oh, you get to watch us suffer. You get to watch the system take advantage of us. You get to see us hung high and dry and left out, and nobody comes to our rescue. But this Juneteenth, this celebration of freedom, we are giving to our people an opportunity to watch freedom unfold like they have never seen it before, to watch us fight against the system and to win, not one time, not two times, but multiple times, to watch us go back into the belly of the beast and reclaim our loved ones and bring them home. That's what this Juneteenth is about. It's about freedom. Mm-hmm. And I pray that your community will join us in watching freedom unfold this Juneteenth. Juneteenth by participating in this watch party. And what's even more beautiful about that is not only are we watching freedom on Juneteenth, but every $1 from every purchase of people joining this campaign will go to support the Amistad Research Center in this environment where our history is being discarded, chucked to the side. We don't even know where the government is placing our history when it is removing it from all of these national archives. There is an archive that is independently held in New Orleans called the Amistad Research Center. It is the largest, oldest, most comprehensive archive of our history in America. And it is seeking to raise $1 million. And we are pledging our support to help them do so by donating 1 million people watching is $1 million to help save the Amistad Research Center in New Orleans. So
it's definitely
it's so much bigger than us.
Yeah, this Juneteenth is about a call to action.
Yes.
More times than not, when we talk about the month of February, when we go through it and we talk about Black history, or when we get to Juneteenth and we talk about the day that we all went free, we tend to talk about it in the rear. We tend to talk about it as if though it's something that happened hundreds of years ago or something, where this particular Juneteenth, we are encouraging people to watch this film as a national watch party, engage in a conversation that will ensue immediately thereafter, and talk about freedom from the themes of the film itself, because unlike the slavery of yesterday, it is still very much alive in the form of mass incarceration. And when you consider the fact that you got 2.3 million people that still languish away in our prisons across America, that is equal or similar in kind to the numbers that we saw to the people that, experienced some aspect of the slavery of old. So as long as these people are continued to be jailed, sent away for astronomical amounts of time,
executed,
we have a duty and a responsibility to make it right. So when we talk about unfinished business, although the unfinished business is there for us as we strive to rescue our nephew, as we strive to create ways for those that we left behind to come forth and come back into to reunification with their families. There's also 400 years worth of unfinished business as far as Blacks in this country. Yes, we've done a lot and have had a lot of strides toward the ending of slavery in this country. But as long as that exception clause continues to exist in our 13th Amendment, that means that we as Black people have some unfinished business in this country. And it's the unfinished business of our forefathers, our ancestors, that put in motion many of the liberties that we enjoy today. But as long as that slip knot is still available through a person that commits a crime, then we got a conversation that needs to be held in terms of how do we get slavery totally abolished in this country once and for all. And please don't misunderstand that to say that we do away with prisons, because no, prisons do have their purpose. But at the same time, they're not supposed to be for the purpose of warehousing individuals. They're supposed to be about correcting bad behavior. And once that behavior has been corrected, it's about returning that citizen back to his community, where he or she can be a functioning member of that community and contribute to the community, opposed to taking from it.
Correct. And Fox, I think you did a great job explaining, as far as we do seem to tell the story up to a certain point in which we do need to travel down. What does someone do with freedom?
Yes.
And your guys' story is probably needs to be the epicenter of what is focused on, especially in our culture, because we've had people that speak on, once you're incarcerated, maybe 4 to 5 out of 6 men will possibly go back, once you're out. And there is a responsibility that you have with the freedom given. So I think this story definitely needs to be told. And we're encouraging our viewers as well to join this watch party, to donate, bare minimum $1. If you have more, definitely go further. And I would love to revisit this conversation once the doc is out, and definitely, again, be able to speak to our audience about what has happened with this. Again, this is the biggest call to action I've seen in a minute. And I think the conversation is so important. A lot of people who enjoy our stories that we tell on this blue couch, a lot of people have been through something, or may even go through something. And like you said, the story's still being written. We're all God's children, and there's no reason to lose hope. And that's really the story we need to push, is that there's hope. So with that being said, I definitely want to have you guys let people know how to get involved, let people know what to follow, where to watch this, just what to do. And we'll, of course, post links in the description, but tell them exactly where they need to go. And also not only follow the Time to Unfinished Business journey, but your guys' journey as well going forward.
We are Fox and Rob on all social media platforms. Our telephone number is there. If you want to book us for an engagement or a screening, you can submit the information online, and then check out Time2, TWOmovie.com, and all of the updates about the movie is there. And the social media handle for the film is Time2 Movie as well. So Time2 Movie, Fox and Rob on all platforms. And we just appreciate the support more than you can ever imagine. This is our duty. We have a duty to fight for our freedom in this country, and we have a duty to win. So thank you for helping us win by allowing us to share this conversation with your community.
Thank you so much. And again, Rob, it's always hard. I've never had to serve more time than just a couple, maybe a warning a day in. And for the time that you did and come out, the man you are, the father you are, the speaker you are, the motivational person you are, it's a testament. So again, I appreciate you for being who you are, and just again, staying the course, because that's exactly where they expect us to kind of veer off. And it's very important that we watch this second document that's coming out. So definitely I appreciate you guys for coming to share your story with our audience. With that being said, is there any shout outs that you want to give as far as anybody involved?
Oh, you know it. I got to shout out my cousin, Bebe. Hey, Bebe. Hey, Bebe.
Okay. Yes.
That's my song. Turn it up.
That's family for real, baby.
That's Rob's cousin.
That's my cousin.
Yes, amazing.
Yes.
Shreveport.
My mom, his
Shreveport's
dad, brothers and
finest.
sisters.
There you go. With that being said, we have to say it, man. I'm looking at it, man. This is the story of the blackballing Clyde. They try to paint that narrative, but you guys are so much more.
Yeah, we live to tell about it.
Yes. Right. Well, there you go. We got to say it, man. Fox and Rob, Rich, we appreciate you for coming on. Time is out now on Amazon. A Time to Unfinished Business. Juneteenth. It's going to be a worldwide event. We want the world to get involved. We appreciate you for coming on the couch, and we have to say it. You guys are some real life street stars, and we salute.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Shout out Reallyfe street stars, nigga. Move. Hey.